Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith & Smokers on the message boards, joined by Will Masisak, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben, the best co-host that money cannot buy. So
I'm sorry, Jeremy. You say that every week. Money can definitely buy me. Just
that
saying.
money can probably buy me too. I mentioned it last week. I need to start a little GoFundMe for our NIL non-existent campaign that we kind of touched
It's
upon
not
last
a
week.
non-existent image and likeness.
Yeah.
Fun. That's what the N is for.
Right? Yeah, none. Yeah, none. But as you all know, the Steelers went up to my town, Indianapolis, and left with a loss. I'm quite pissed because, last year I was expecting to lose to the Colts. This year I was expecting to win. So now, for a whole year, I have to be in this town and get shat on for not winning. I love it. I love
Well,
it.
with any luck, Jeremy, they'll meet They'll come to Indianapolis for the playoffs and lose that game and give you a little extra something to work on.
Yeah,
Oh
well,
my God.
Indy's got a lot of work just to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, anyway, so do the Steelers
yeah,
apparently.
yeah, lots of work to be done in Pittsburgh as well. Let's touch on this game. I actually missed like the first quarter of this game. I had friends over to watch the game since I ended up deciding not to go to it. And on our way back from B-Dubs, someone hit us. So I actually missed the first quarter of this game. No worries. I am A-OK. I was only pissed off for just a little bit. But unfortunately, my friend's car definitely has some damage to it. So
Ah.
hopefully he gets all that sorted out. He was telling me this ridiculous thing that you have to pay for the accident report now. When it's like, isn't that just like supposed to be given to you? And it wasn't given to him in person. You had to scan a QR code to go get it to pay for
Do you also have to tip? Was there like a tipping section?
it. right, right. But let's get back to the game. But I did see most of it. I kind of went back and rewatched the parts I missed. Boy, this is just the game of missed opportunities on so many different levels. Joey Porter dropping two interceptions in this game, one in the end zone, one in the first play of the game. George Pickens fumbling the ball at, like, I think it was at the 10-yard line or something like that. Justin Fields with a horrendous, like, college looking like quarterback play where he's trying to create time and get the ball off. Man, just lots of missed opportunities this game. That's my biggest takeaway from this game.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's I don't know. There's a couple, I have many things to say.
Yeah.
First of all, I think I was sitting in traffic that was so standstill that I got to watch some of the game while I was driving. But we had like a traffic nightmare Sunday morning, so I also did not get home for the start of the game, and I also didn't because of this didn't post the game thread at Steeler Fury in time, and I also missed the beginning of the podcast last week. So there's a theme to all of this. I think the Steelers also missed the beginning of the game, and someone hit them also. I think this game is a good summary of a couple of things. If you don't come out in the beginning of the game and play at least with the energy level that the opponent has, even if you have superior talent, it remains to be seen if the Steelers are clearly better, but the guys on the Steelers who are actually superior talent didn't play well for the first half of the game. And that was really hard to overcome. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two is you can put up fantasy stats that look amazing. Like Justin Fields' stats in this game look great, but if you don't take into account the last, particularly the last four plays of the game, the last four plays of the game were some just, whether it's, I hesitate to say scared because NFL players, man, are like brave. They take hits. You play quarterback in the NFL. You gotta have bravery. So it's not that exactly, but I feel like he really had a meltdown the last four plays. So the fumbled snap where he called for the snap and then wasn't ready for it. And we've gone, round and round on that this week. I think it's pretty convincing that as long as both Justin Fields and Zach Frazier aren't lying about what the snap count was, that it was on Fields for calling for it, and then immediately scanning all the way to the left. Oh, sorry, he looked right. He went all the way to the left, and he was on his way. He passed the football, and it was actually looking right when the snap came. He did all of that after he called for the snap, which I think is pretty much pushing the limits of what you can do after you call for the snap before you get it. And then, he got into that thing of like avoiding the throw on the next couple of plays, avoiding an easy throw or an easy run in one case to get out, escape the pocket, and maybe get, big gain. He avoided that in order to hold the ball and wait for, it to be perfect, wait for it to be super open to throw it. And on the fourth down play, he had Van Jefferson, which is hard to believe I'm saying that, but he had Van Jefferson open as the first read. And I sort of get it. Like the other team's going to focus on George Pickens, and you can get this other guy open. And he had a bubble to throw that ball into right on time. He looked at it. He stared at the whole way. Looked at it. Had his arm back to make the throw, and didn't pull the trigger. Evaded a clean pocket, and then threw a ball that to no one. So all the fantasy stats in the world don't matter if you can't finish. And if you can't start and you can't finish, you're not likely to win.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's the typical Justin Fields thing. I think you even sent a text to me and Corey about it. It's like, this is why he was available for the pick that we send away for him. The might be a fourth, but could be a sixth type of deal. It's just I don't know, just the reality of that really set in at the end of the game this week, to the point where we hadn't seen that in the first few games because the Steelers were playing with a lead, playing to protect the ball. So we were like a little bit more okay with the indecisiveness or not wanting to turn it over, but it's like, it's go time now. You got to be able to rip it out there, and just the lack of timing still at this point in your career just kind of dooms you. Like this is who you are. That there is no, I know you're going to hear all the media pundits, ESPN, all these people be like, Fields played a very good game today. And it was like, no, he did an okay job, because he's not getting the ball out when he needs to. And that's going to always hold him back. They keep talking about, how he's improving every single week and whatnot. This was the biggest halt on that you could possibly put out there, because this is everything he did in Chicago summed up in the last 4 plays of the game. He reverted right back to it. So, I was going to ask you, I don't know if it's a product of, Mike Tomlin, because we've always been saying he wants to play this risk averse style of offense and everything. But at some point you have to just go out there and be like, I'm the freaking quarterback. I have to get it done. The hell with everything else. And that didn't happen. That light didn't turn on. So just disappointing again.
I would like to give Justin Fields credit for something, which is I thought that his post game demeanor, handling questions, and accepting responsibility was actually pretty admirable. He's very sort of relatively quiet and soft-spoken person in terms of his public persona. So you don't often get to see what his personality is like, which I think is maybe part of the reason that he's even more polarizing than he is because he's not like this bubbly personality that you just want to root for. But I think he was immediately like, the snap was my fault. I did this. And he didn't make excuses. He just explained what happened, and he said that it was his fault. And I feel like people were criticizing, the rookie, because it's like a rookie that you can blame if you're trying to avoid blaming the guy that seems to be, entrenched right now as a franchise's starter, and probably not just this year, but going forward. Like, I think that's I won't say it's good or bad. The most difficult part for me right now watching a team is understanding that we're working our way towards a long-term marriage with Justin Fields. And it's like, imagine you had those of you who have kids, right? Imagine that your kid ended up with you could see them lining up in a relationship with a spouse that you didn't think was going to be really good for them. Maybe they're not a terrible person. Maybe there's some things about them that are good, but ultimately, like you have this vision like it's going to crash and burn, and you feel bad because you can't really say anything or do anything, and you just have to like go along for the ride. That's sort of like I feel where we are now. The optimist, in me is like, well, maybe him making great plays, inconsistently mixed in with some bad plays. Maybe that's enough, to win more than I think it can. But it just depends on so many other things going right. Right? You can't. It's like this is if everything is perfect and you step in with a quarterback like that. Yeah, I'm sure they can win uh, a lot of games, and they could even win the postseason against the right opponents. Blah blah blah.
Well, and
So
then, my biggest complaint about is, all of a sudden when we needed points, we were able to really move the ball up and down the field at a pretty good pace and score twice. And it's like we hadn't done that all game, but until we absolutely needed to, we did kick it into gear. We didn't win at the end, but I think we were down 10 points at one point, or 14.
17 or 13, I think, or 17. 17, yeah.
Yeah, 17 or something. I was like, we're cooked. Like this isn't the team that, we've said it a million times. This Steelers team has not been built to come back from big deficits. It's like all those teams that you say, oh, they're really good until you have to force them to pass the ball. That's what I thought we were. And then we come out and all of a sudden we're passing the ball all over the place and stuff. So again, I have to put some of this on Tomlin too. I know, he can't account for the turnovers and stuff, but when we absolutely needed to move the ball, all of a sudden we found a way to move the ball. Why do we not just go to this all the time as our offense? So that's just another gripe. I
mean, clearly, you have to give the Steelers offense credit for moving the football and driving down the field, but there's also when you have a big lead like that as a defense, it's pretty hard to sustain the kind of energy that the Colts had the first 2 quarters of the game, where they were absolutely killing the Steelers offensive line and taking away all the options. So at that point, I do think you're right that if you don't run into stacked boxes with maniacal linebackers and safeties crashing down, you're probably going to have a better success than running Najee Harris up the middle. But yeah, I think there's a sort of a combination of the play calling got a little bit less stale, and the other team was, in a position where they were just thinking about how do we run out the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Colts managed that okay for part of the time. I just felt like it got, it also got away from them. It's hard to do that in the NFL. It's hard to have a big lead and ride it home. It's hard to keep the energy up to keep the foot on the gas, and it's hard to turtle. Hard winning games in the NFL is hard. That's the bottom line. However, I'll say this: if Cordell Patterson did not come into the game, I don't think the Steelers. I'm not sure the Steelers would have scored 20 points. Like the energy and the spark that Patterson brought in the game, and also I think he was in for 8 plays and touched it 6 times, and moved the ball right down the field till he got hurt. I feel like that suddenly changed the momentum of the game with in no small way. That really made a difference. They never did really get the running game going again after he left, but at least they had, some energy. Like we're not dead yet. So I credit Patterson for that. And now, of course, him being hurt, I guess he's possibly available this week. But I feel like it's time to start talking about Najee Harris, as the elephant in the room.
See, that's the marriage that we want to end into divorce as well. It's like I feel like we have that at quarterback, we have that at running back. It's like there's a reason why we decided not to give Harris his 5th-year option, and now we're stuck this year kind of riding him out as Jaylen Warren has been banged up this year with his knee injury. I'm not sure if there's really been anything publicized on what came of him meeting with whatever knee specialist.
I haven't seen anything, no.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. And then I'm glad you brought up Cordero Patterson, because I was going to say, look, while we're sticking with the offense, Patterson looked great when he got in. He looked explosive. He broke tackles. He was able to help out in the passing game a little bit. He caught, I think, one or two balls, if memory serves correct. That's the type of running back the Steelers really need if in an Arthur Smith offense. It's kind of crazy. It's like he had this big back last year, and Bijan Robinson, he didn't even use him that way. So who knows? But
I tell you what, it's just as quick aside. It's an epic. I say this not lightly. It is an epic running back class in the draft this year.
oh, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
there's 20 guys who could upgrade the Steelers as a starter available in the draft if there's one. I mean, I'm serious. It's like an endless supply of running backs. So,
Yeah.
and guys with juice, different skills, passing game, bigger guys, smaller guys, whatever you like.
Yeah. So
Hopefully, I'm sure they'll get the slowest one. The biggest, slowest dude will be here. Anyway.
Yeah, it just sucks that we're already like, well, we could use a quarterback. Oh, we could use a running back. Oh, we could actually.
Well, let's start talking about the defense for a second.
Yeah, I was about to say, but we could go way down the rabbit hole there. But the other reason we lost this game is because our defense. We could not get off the field on third down, and that's been a penchant of Steelers defenses.
Oh, and by the way, the Steelers coming back in this game and making it close at the end. I never thought I'd live to say this, but Anthony Richardson getting knocked out of the game was probably a factor in that as much as anything else. I think that Joe Flacco is a good quarterback and actually did a good job managing the game, but Richardson was killing them. Yeah. I think that, it sort of feel like we talked about this a week or two ago. We were talking about the Steelers. We wanted them to have a test, and that the teams that could really test them would be, an offensive line that could block up the pass rush well enough to give their quarterback time, and a quarterback who had enough, talent to make some plays downfield. Those would be two things that the defense really hadn't seen, and pair that with a running game that's effective and that could be dangerous for the Steelers. And this is exactly what happened. I mean, it wasn't just Taylor; it was also Richardson running the ball. That was a big factor earlier in the game, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. And then I hate to say it, but I was right on point. Josh Downs absolutely killed the middle of our defense. No one could stay with him.
Kudos. Yeah. You nailed that. I thought about that. But I mean, I feel like this, it's just I've been harping on the middle of the field defense from, the middle of the defensive line to the pass coverage in the middle of the field and linebackers and slot players, the slot corners, maybe a safety slot player in dime. That this is like what separates elite defenses in the NFL right now. The edge pass rush era of what I will call like the 10 years of early 90s to early 2000s, or maybe even to 2010, when the rules were really changed. That era was, all about the edge rushers. I feel like now it's about interior players. It's about, to me, when I look at defensive players in the league that I think are the best, the two of them to pop out immediately are Chris Jones and Fred Warner. And those guys play positions that we didn't think of as being super valuable. Even 10 years ago, it was still like, oh, a nose tackle, like who really needs that? Although Chris Jones, of course, is proven to be way more than a nose tackle that we perceived him as when he came out. And Fred Warner, off-ball linebacker, not anymore. It's not really the thing. But those guys have a big impact. What the Steelers are running right now with Patrick Queen, and I mean they get plays out of Keanu Benton and Ogunjobi, but they're not exactly well-rounded players. Those are guys that give you like a first step pass rush, maybe a penetration here and there, but they're not exactly like fearsome against the run game, which I felt from the beginning of the year was really going to be a thing. If a team had a good enough offensive line to keep TJ Watt at bay and run the ball against some defenders that weren't necessarily, run killers, that could give them some problems. Because once you start worrying about stopping the run, as you know, from seeing it for the Steelers to other teams, once you start thinking about stopping the run, then you're vulnerable to all kinds of stuff over the middle. So I thought the Josh Downs thing really happened. The reason he was so effective was that they were really worried about the quarterback run. first of all, like first and foremost, they were worried about the quarterback run, and then they started getting hurt with the running back runs with Taylor, and that opened up the middle of the field and the slot guy, being able to do stuff downfield because, too much work for the linebackers and slot players to worry if they have to worry about the run game.
So you bring up another something I want to bring up. What we'll kind of use this to kind of cut off our Colts game analysis here, but is it difficult for a defense to prepare for one thing and then just flip to another? Because I don't know. I'm not sure I buy the argument that they spent all this time preparing for Richardson, but then weren't like, I understand they weren't ready for Flacco, but it's like Flacco is a normal ass quarterback who just sits in the pocket, like he's your basic defense 101. So it's like, wouldn't you go back to your 101 here versus, the 2 point, your 200 level course you might have had to have used to prepare for Anthony Richardson?
Well, I mean, in the passing game, Joe Flacco is better than, all but maybe 12 quarterbacks in the league, right? As a pure passer and reading defenses and knowing where to put the football. So it's not like he's one of the better backups, I think, at age 40 or whatever he is, that there is in the league. But I guess I have to say without, so that, because I'm sure there are people who are like yelling at their whatever they listen to their podcast on right now, that TJ Watt was held every play, and that's really what happened. That's why they were able to quiet him. I mean, to a degree, yes. I do think that the right strategy in the NFL with a pass rusher like TJ Watt is to hold him on every play, knowing that, oh yeah, maybe they'll call one early on you, but it's very unlikely if you're not, if you at least give the appearance that you're trying to block them, that you'll get away with a lot just by doing it on every play because they refuse to call it on every play. Saw this with James Harrison, seeing it now with TJ Watt for the last couple of years. And it's like, it's also hard to do that. It's hard to keep TJ Watt down even by holding him. But I do think that is something they need to be prepared for. So in a way, rather than being, they held him all game and how were they supposed to be successful or whatever, I think you have to know that you're not always going to have a game where TJ Watt is going to wreck everything for you. But this might as well have been a game where TJ Watt didn't play, and we know what the Steelers look like when he doesn't play.
Yeah, no, very true. When Watt doesn't make an impact, we normally don't win a game. So, well, like you said, that's what they prepared for, and that's what they were able to do. So, but either way, just kind of came away disappointed just because Pittsburgh had plenty of opportunities in this game and then just didn't capitalize it. Lost the turnover battle 3-0, I think. I don't think we forced a turnover all day. Had plenty of opportunities to get a few, but just didn't and gave the ball away. So there are very few teams that can win or lose the turnover battle and still win. And yes, that was a shout out to my Hoosiers, who in their second Big Ten game lost the turnover battle 4-0 and still won by 14. So,
yes, my text to Jeremy was, are they, now that we said some good things about them on the show, are they intent to like make us look bad? Because they were trying to give that one away.
Right.
But did not.
No, they didn't. Hoosiers are in some rarefied air right now. So they'll be undefeated heading into Nebraska.
It's their Canadian content. Big quarterback matchup at Nebraska.
Yep. If you haven't heard about him yet, you will definitely hear about Curtis Work. He's playing pretty well. So I actually got some nice love from The Athletic. They bumped him way up in their quarterback rankings to like number 7 or 8, behind all the other ones that you already know.
Yeah. I think that's probably about right. That's about kind of where I have. I just was reworking them a little bit last night because I'm doing those of you who are listeners to the show, I'm doing a draft a team simulation with 6 other drafters on NFL Draft Fanatic. That simulator has draft a team built in this year. Jim Wickens did draft a team with us last year, and we had a discussion after our draft a team, and we were talking about who would be able to, how because I built a bot to be able to draft a team last year in an automated way, and he was like, I think we could do that. So they built it into their system, and it's it's going to debut soon. We're just doing some shows where we show, how it works and what we do. So I had to do for probably the earliest ever like position rankings for an NFL draft. So I already just to let you know how much of a sickness it is. I didn't count it exactly, but I think I have more than 250 players position ranked anyway. I don't know about like, the whole hierarchy, but I have a little bit of a consensus overall and about, because for this exercise you have to draft a whole team. So you need 30 if there's going to be 10 drafters. So I've scored 30 defensive tackles, that I feel like that I would draft.
Mhm.
And 30 wide receivers and 30 cornerbacks. And you try doing that. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny,
In October,
right. I was about to say it's funny, that's such a huge exercise if you haven't been a part of it. So that's an insane amount of work, considering everyone that you end up drafting in that. So,
but you'll be able to practice to your heart's content on NFL Draft Fanatics. And the other thing about that is we will have a Steeler Fury podcast membership. So you'll get a discount off the membership. And when you do your drafting, it'll have a little screen that puts you in the Steeler Fury podcast mode. So you'll be able to do all of that. And that's awesome. So real announcement coming soon, but that sounds fun.
That's awesome. Well, the Steelers can't keep looking back. They do have a pretty decent sized test coming into town. Sunday Night Football this week. They get the Dallas Cowboys, who aren't world beaters by any chance, but that they have started to play better, especially their defense started tackling a lot better. However, the Steeler gods have shined upon us again, because it sure sounds like Micah Parsons will not be available this week. Sounds like he's going to miss multiple games with a high ankle injury. He got very late in their contest from Thursday Night Football this week against the Giants. So that's a blessing in disguise, just because they're probably best player overall on their team won't be available for this one. But so let's dive into some matchups.
Yeah, and Dexter also out.
Yeah, Dasbury said that their other edge players. So, I'll just start off right there. Our offensive tackles do not have much of an excuse not to win their matchups this week. Dan Moore does not have an excuse to lose, because Cowboys are also down Sam Williams. He was supposed to be their top backup edge rusher to begin the year, and he tore I think he tore his Achilles in camp.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like Cowboys are down to their fourth and fifth edge rushers already for this game. So there's really no excuse for Dan Moore, to get caught up with whoever they're going to put out there. I think it's Chauncey Golston, who's he's stuck around for a little while, but nothing great. I will say Marshawn Nealand is a kid that I know a lot of us were very high on coming out of Western Michigan, I believe. He's kind of a wrecking ball at defensive end. So high effort, very talented guy. That might be the one guy who might be able to really kind of test, whether it's Dan Moore or Broderick Jones. But either way, the tackles look to have favorable matchups this week, just from the fact that they're not playing Dallas's normal starting group.
Yeah, well, that's true. Although they do have Carl Lawson to elevate from the practice squad they signed a couple weeks ago. So, and there's a guy that I have no idea what Carl Lawson has left or looks like right now. But he's a pro, so he would be somebody that you would expect could come in for a game or two and give you a good effort. But yeah, this is I didn't take note of, I'm not saying it's true. I didn't take note of any particularly poor pass rush reps from Dan Moore, but Broderick Jones did have some issues last week. So, it's like it's never fun when you see the guy running towards the quarterback and the tackle with his arm outstretched chasing him like and that's sort of what that looked like. So I wouldn't say that I think every NFL team has pass rushers that if you don't play good technique, as an offensive tackle against them, you can get beat, right? You may not struggle with them the entire game, whatever, but all it takes is a really well-timed pass rush that creates a turnover or stops a key drive or, gets you late in the game. So someone like Carl Lawson, and well, I mean, I love Marshawn Leland. I think this is a great opportunity for him to step up and show what he can do as a starter, and probably he'll rise to the occasion. So I expect him to have a pretty good game. But yeah, you know, the someone like Carl Lawson more effective if the Cowboys had a lead late in the game and they could just spin that guy, like kind of like the Von Miller role in Buffalo. Aside from, I don't know, was it like a domestic? I don't know what did Von Miller do to get suspended? I actually didn't catch what his offense was.
Yeah, I thought it was. I didn't think it was domestic violence either. I thought it was almost like performance enhancing drugs, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, well, they would have. I think they would have suspended him sooner because I think it's just been going on for a while.
Gotcha.
But at any rate, though, hopefully Carl Lawson won't get himself suspended before he gets elevated from the practice squad.
Right.
The matchup I think is interesting in this game is Dallas is very deep at wide receiver, and they have some good ones. And the Steelers, secondary situation is a lot better than it was last year at times. But we poked some holes in that a little bit last week. And my sense is that the Steelers, the players that they are playing in the slot at safety and at nickelback, they did a really good job. When they have the right matchup, I think they can be really effective. I think there might be some matchups in this league at slot receiver, and it may be that smaller, quicker guys are more of an issue for them. So this will stress the secondary for Pittsburgh. And to me, the real solution to that is not how do we cover all these guys? The real solution is to get better pass rush.
Yeah, well, because that's exactly where I was going to go. Cowboys love moving CeeDee Lamb into the slot, which would be our kryptonite. They run him from the slot.
But you don't think Patrick Queen can cover him in the slot? Come on.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we ever thought Patrick Queen could cover. Period. When we covered his signing this offseason. But I mean, it's not just Lamb. Brandon Cooks has been in this league for a long time. He can play the slot. Kevontae Turpin actually has been getting time more at receiver this year than running back, just because the Cowboys, have a deeper running back room theoretically, than they have in the past. They have more bodies. I don't know if it's deeper, but Turpin's been getting some time at receiver. He actually caught a touchdown. I think it was in week 2 or week 3 or something, where he was the guy wide open, in the back of the end zone. And it's like, God, that's another guy I don't want the middle of our defense trying to run and chase around. So, I don't like that. And then even, a guy that you and Corey really liked, Hunter Lipke, who's on their team, he does damage as the receiving back on this team.
Well, that was going to be my next matchup. I'm president of the Hunter Lipke fan club for like 5 years running, but I will say I think it's mystifying that they don't use him as their number one back. Like, to me, with what they have going on right now, he's their best guy to like be the starter. Sure, spell him with the other guys who give you something different or whatever. But I think if you let that guy touch the ball both as a runner and a catcher the majority of the time out of your running back splits, that they could be really successful with that, because he's not a guy that's going to lose a bunch of yards. You're always going to get chunks. And he is capable of doing more than what they're asking him to do. That being said, even as the pass catching back, yes, against a guy like Logan Wilson or Peyton Wilson rather, I think that the Steelers can at least have someone that can adequately step up to that level. But I don't think I really want to see Hunter Lipke against the other linebackers in coverage. I think that's a mismatch for in Dallas's favor. I just don't, luckily for us, I don't think that they see him as being like a real key to their offense. He's like a thing that they feel like they check the box once in a while and throw it to him. Mostly, I think he's their third down back because he's a good blocker and they throw to CeeDee Lamb downfield. That's what it feels like. So that helps. Um, but yeah, you just can't ignore a guy like that. Even though he doesn't look like he's not as scary as Turpin because he's not, a 4-2 guy, but he's plenty fast. I think he was, you know, his like speed score, meaning it's fast for what his weight is, was, right up there with guys like Derrick Henry. I mean, he's an athlete. He's not quite that top end speed, but that sort of intermediate speed. Like if he gets, into second gear, because he gets free ride into your secondary, like he's trouble. He's a load, and he's good. He's great hands and great in the pass game, runs great routes. So
Yeah,
very impressive
yeah,
player for somebody that we don't really know that much about because they don't use him very much.
yeah. The first step quickness for a guy his size is unreal. That's how I like to judge them all running backs. Really, is your first step. Quickness. How quick can you get out of the gates? Long speed's great, but I mean, short speed's everything in this game. Because you're fighting for inches, yards, whatever you want to get at it. I grew up spoiled to a degree because we saw the Chris Johnsons of the world and the fast Willie Parkers, being able to
Yeah.
take it so dang far. But I mean, I think almost everyone would trade for a guy that consistently get 4 or 5 yards, when he puts, plants and just goes. So I mean,
Well, you need a bit of both. You need a
yeah,
bit of both. To me, on that, yes, that first step quickness is important, but I feel like the guys who are really great are nimble in the between the time that they get the football in their hands in the backfield to when they hit the line of scrimmage. They are just nimble. They can see a place to go. They have the vision to see the place to go, and they have nimble feet where it doesn't even look like they're doing much, but they make subtle adjustments to get to where they're going at the right angle and without losing speed. And I think the guys who don't lose speed, like that was the thing about Cordero Patterson coming in the game. He's able to do that without really losing speed as he goes through the hole. And we used to talk about that, a pass catching running back is one that doesn't have to slow down, stop, and collect himself to catch the ball. He just catches it naturally while he's doing whatever he's doing, right? That's the difference. You can be a running back that not a great pass catcher, but catch a screen and do some stuff with it. But if you're able to catch effortlessly, makes a big difference. So when you're able to hit the hole in Patterson's case, or even a guy like Derrick Henry, I think it's a very underrated ability to have this nimble path to, quickly gets from the ball to the line and the right place makes it look easy, like he's not even really redirecting. But if you watch it from behind, he's actually making a lot of redirections in that very short period of time because he's very nimble and has the vision, to know where to go. So yeah, I like guys that always get a few yards and never go backwards. That's wonderful. But I also don't want to say it's the only thing that you really want to have because you got to be able to turn when the offensive line gives you 7 or 8 or 15, you have to be able to turn that into 15 once in a while. You can't always say I got 5 or 6 or 7, I'm happy, because
yeah.
you're leaving a lot of plays and yards on the table. You're forcing your team to have more plays per drive. If you have more plays per drive, you can make more mistakes. If you make mistakes in a drive like that, it kills you.
Yeah, and to kind of cap off the matchups thing, just quickly kind of preview the Dallas line versus our defensive line. Dallas has been starting 2 rookies for the majority of the year. Tyler Guyton at left tackle, a guy who I was pretty high on entering this draft class. He's shown some awards here, especially in pass protection. He's just not quite there for the NFL level yet. He has been really giving up quick counters. That's kind of been his big thing. He's oversetting so far to the outside that he's not ready for the inside move to come back. So I doubt Alex Highsmith is available for this game. So it's going to be Nick Herbig again. So I hope Nick Herbig looked at the tape these past few weeks, because he definitely has the ability to force Tyler Guyton to overset and then come back in with his rushing quickness. So
Herbig does have an ankle that's not 100%. They said he's going to play, and he's
okay,
expected to practice and whatever, but he hurt his ankle and left the game last week. So it's not nothing when your game is really about that the speed and the spin move and that kind of thing. So something to watch out for. Hey, can I get one last matchup in?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna.
Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are the number one special teams uh, team in the league
Ooh.
in terms of DVOA, and I think it adds up. They have an
Hmm.
amazing returner in Turpin, and they have probably the best kicker in the NFL right now,
Yeah, who would have
at
thought?
least on his way in Brandon Aubrey. So, yeah, they're the thing is, you look at matchups all day long, and you think about quarterbacks, and you think about the defensive line and back and forth, but Dallas will sneak some special teams chunks on you and get points in situations where, I mean, basically when they get to midfield, they're in field goal range. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you spend a lot of time playing bend but don't break defense, they're going to put up points. So yes, it's Acrisure, and maybe it won't be quite as easy for him to kick field goals as it was in, as it is in Dallas or whatever, but that's a factor. Boswell, obviously his career numbers say it all. He's great from long range and whatever, but I also felt like, his coach didn't have him kick a field goal that this year in the NFL is a reasonable thing, like a 60-yard field goal, bypass that in favor of a punt, despite the fact that he has Chris Boswell. But the difference is that, team like Dallas with Aubrey, they feel like they're gonna trot him out there and give him a shot at 67-yard field goals if he tells him he can make it, because he's got the ability to do that. So this, not getting gashed for big returns and accounting for the fact that they have to start tightening up before they get to midfield in order to keep Dallas off the scoreboard. Those are two big factors.
Yeah, it's funny. I almost forgot that, we were in field goal range for Boswell, in my opinion, and we passed that up. I had a very hard time justifying that. It's like,
And then Winford on fourth and short just after that. It's like the internal machinations of when it's time to be aggressive and when it's time to punt are mystifying sometimes. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, because I mean, in the other thing is, like, the kick is indoors too. It's like you don't have to worry about the Acrisure wind. If you would to make that call in Pittsburgh, and the wind has been a factor for some of the day, it's like, okay, I get it. That's a really long one to try outdoors and not great weather conditions, but it's like, you're inside. Why wouldn't you try that? So I mean, again, that's Colts game. We're trying to move on, but I have one more minor gripe that I had in a game where we lost by 3. So, but there are some other games happening around the league, so I want to get to that. And the first one is probably the most interesting and looked forward to game of this week. You have the Miami Dolphins traveling to the New England Patriots. Just joking, everyone. This is the worst game in the league. Don't watch this, but I want to throw it out here just for shits and giggles. This is probably the least offensive output that you will see all week. Patriots are at home, favored by 1. What do you think, Will?
Well, I mean, these kind of games often surprise, with teams uh, who you don't think, like, you get two teams together that don't seem to have any offense, and suddenly they put up a bunch of points. So it wouldn't shock me if this game is like, somebody scores 20, 30, 27, 30, 34. It's just, one of those weeks. I felt like New England maybe is capable of playing a little better. I felt like Huntley was really disappointing for Miami last week. And they're, better than an upgrade from Skylar Thompson, but maybe he puts it together a little better this week, having that last week under his belt to knock off the rest. But I think it's probably I'm just trying to see what I was trying to look at DVOA to see if Miami or New England was the worst. One of those two is, Carolina is maybe the worst, but those two are both bottom 5 teams in the league. So I think I did it on the picks this week. I didn't toss a coin, but it was close. I'll take New England. Miami has talent, but I just feel like they're right now that their defense isn't playing that great, and their trigger man on offense is, not prepared to play against a team that has even a modicum of defense as New England does. New England's good. I mean, they both have the same problem. They're missing sort of that key piece to be able to do something on offense that's NFL like.
Yeah, I'll agree with you here. I like the Patriots here, and I think the difference is at least the Patriots, like have their starting quarterback out there and can actually move the ball up and down the field. Miami without Tua looks like a lost ship out in the ocean right now. It's like that they're getting blown whichever way the wind blows. So I like New England here too. I think that they'll be able to run the ball. They pass the ball to a decent degree of success here and there. That they are able to move the ball. They don't always make it points, but I just feel like New England has the better recipe for success this week.
Don't you think Miami? You think Miami? When is the trade deadline?
It's like week 8 or 9. It's like another 4 weeks.
I mean, I think if you wait all the way to the deadline, it's too late. But it wouldn't shock me if Miami made sort of like a home run swing move, to try to get a young quarterback from somewhere that maybe isn't perceived as being a superstar, but who fits what they want to do well enough to be able to, upgrade this year. Because I don't know if we really think Tua is coming back, and that gives them a problem not only for this year but going forward. So I would have said if Russell Wilson were doing what Fields is doing so far this year, that would have been a team that would pay a healthy ransom for someone like Justin Fields. Like that might have really worked for them. But yeah, I'd be really surprised if Miami, unless they just feel like they're going to tank this year and get a quarterback next year, which they well could. Cam Ward would look nice there.
Not a very far drive either.
Yeah, so that feels like they have to be sort of semi-aware of that. But I feel their season is about to go so far in the tank that they can't get out of it no matter who is quarterback.
So I mean, you brought up something interesting there. Do you think if we are firmly on the Justin Fields wagon at this point, which it kind of feels like we are, even Steelers this week have said, we're planning on starting Justin again in week 5. Russ is amping up his level of, I don't know, practice ability, I guess. I mean, would you trade Russell Wilson if you're Pittsburgh? I mean, the idea has been floated out there. I'm not saying it should happen or will happen, but it has been something that's been thrown out into, the sports universe. And it's like, if we don't think Wilson will be back and we are really going to hitch the wagon to Justin Fields, why wouldn't we trade him for at least that 4th round pick that we're going to give up for Justin Fields? I don't know.
Well, first of all, the best ability is practice availability.
Fair enough.
Practice ability. No, I think what it boils down to is if you think you got not just like a 1% chance, but like a really good shot at winning the Super Bowl, you don't trade him. Now, you and I might not think the Steelers really have a chance to win the Super Bowl, but I believe their mentality is they think they're a serious contender to win the Super Bowl. Therefore, there's a 0 chance that they trade Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I think you might even be able to get better than a 4th, because I think you might squeeze a 3rd out of somebody, or a 4th plus, because of the fact that he's a free agent after the season. And I actually forget the rules. If you trade for a guy who has got an expiring contract, I'm not positive you get the comp pick. But if they get the comp pick, then it's totally worth giving up that pick, because you're essentially going to get it right back in a year. But yeah, I don't think I think if you see a quarterback traded to Miami, it'll be from a team that is not a contender. Maybe Gardner Minshew, or someone like that would be a more doable option, because if they don't feel like what they really need is like a fantastic player, they just need somebody to like be better than what they have, and they don't have to give up too much for that.
Yeah, it's just an interesting concept, because the way Miami's playing, if they don't improve, let's say they do give up a 3rd round pick, it's going to be like a top 5 3rd round pick, so it's like you're looking at a really good player that just kind of falls out around 2 or something, or maybe there's not quite the consensus on
Yeah.
his projectability or whatever. But just a random thought, since we were kind of talking about the Dolphins and you brought up Russ there. But another really good game this week. And I actually mean that this time. Don't worry.
Liar.
Buffalo is heading to Houston. Buffalo coming off a big loss on, I think it was Sunday Night Football versus the Ravens. Kind of got their asses handed to them. It was kind of the polite way of putting it. Buffalo's a 1-point favorite heading into Houston. I'll start off with this one. I like Houston here. I think the Ravens were able to show some things that where they were able to do against Buffalo in particular that made them so successful. I think Houston has the pieces to be able to do that. That they have a pretty good defense. They've got 2 edge rushers that can get after Allen, especially if they keep him in the pocket. Like every other team doesn't find a way how to do somehow. But they've got talent on the back end. They've got a talented defense. And not to mention this guy's a Stephon Diggs revenge game, so to say. So I think Houston will be raring to go. I know they had a close game against Jacksonville this past weekend, but I think that was more of a dead horse showing life in Jacksonville than anything. But so I like Houston here, even though I really like Buffalo this year. I just think Houston might have a little bit better of a performance this week. So I like Houston winning and covering there.
By the way, if Jacksonville's coach gets, who's the Jacksonville's coach? Peterson, right?
Peterson, yep.
Yeah. If he gets fired, low key, they could totally upend their franchise and send Trevor Lawrence to somebody for, maybe you get a number 1 pick for Trevor Lawrence. So
I don't know. He's been horrible so far.
I know, but I'm saying you could probably find. I mean, what did they get? Somebody got for Josh Rosen. They got like a 2nd round pick,
A 2nd and a 5th.
Yeah, so I'm saying if you can get a 2nd and 5th for Josh Rosen, you can get a number 1 for Trevor Lawrence. So you send Trevor Lawrence to Miami, you end up with an extra either 1 or 2, high 2, and you get yourself a quarterback in next year's draft with a new regime. That kind of makes sense in a way, especially in a draft where if you have 2 number 1s, you can get an excellent defensive player or wide receiver early, and then add a quarterback as well. If I'm Jacksonville, I'm thinking about it. Anyway, in this game, Buffalo, how'd it to be Buffalo and play? Did they play somebody good before the Ravens as well? I think they're on a stretch here of like.
I thought they played 2 relative cupcakes in week 2 and 3. They played Jackson. I think they hammered Jackson.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so anyway, they go from Baltimore where they got waxed to Houston. I think Houston is also a really good team. I like Buffalo in this. I think Houston's slumping ever so slightly. Not serious. They're in a little bit of I would call it a lull, right? Where they're not quite. They don't quite have the unstoppable feeling that you had with them at times last year, late in the season when they got on a roll, and they haven't really started a roll like that yet this year. I feel like they will get it together, and they have the pieces to do that. I love their coaching. I love their offensive plan. I don't feel has been as good this year, and that's Slowick still, right? So Slowick is the guy that everybody thinks is Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator, is the guy that's a head coaching candidate going forward, and because of what he showed last year. And this year, I feel like it's been a little staler, like it hasn't really worked as well. Buffalo, I feel like, is really talented. They just ran into a buzzsaw last week. So that it's that recency bias that makes us think that they're not going to be good again next week. But I have a feeling that if it truly is the Diggs revenge game, that Buffalo will come out and get their revenge. I feel like they felt a little bit like he wasn't with them last year.
Yeah, and one thing I kind of do forget about Houston, they have not looked the same since Joe Mixon has left the lineup. The kind of some instability at running back with even Damian Pierce not playing, having to rely on Cam Akers, who has bounced around to multiple teams for various reasons. So true coin flip. I just feel like Houston at home just finds a way to get it done.
Yep.
Let's go to another one who I think is a very interesting matchup this week. The New York Jets head to Minnesota. Minnesota's a 2.5-point favorite here. I saw this game and I was like, this is kind of a fun one, I think, to look at. Will, I'll let you start off here.
Yeah, I mean, I know people are going to look at this and be like, well, Aaron Rodgers is familiar with playing the NFC North and he'll figure out how to get it done. But this is a different Minnesota team than it was when Rodgers was in Green Bay. And like many Minnesota teams and also many early season Mirage teams, Minnesota may come to earth at some point, especially, they're banking on Sam Darnold a lot right now. I'm not sure if that's a great long-term bet, but right now Bitcoin is up. But I think, at this very second, it'd be hard to argue that Minnesota isn't playing the best football in the NFL. So until proved otherwise, I'll stick with Minnesota. By the way, I've developed this theory over the last 25 years or so that 4 games in to the NFL season is really the place where you start to make sense of the league a little bit. And yeah, there are plenty of teams who play great for 4 games who don't end up being contenders in the end. And there are plenty of teams that play poorly for 4 games, the first 4 games, and end up getting out of it. But it tends to be a pretty good barometer. It's just funny seeing this, like the Steelers game in game 4. If you put that in context with the other all 4 games and look at what they've done, it gives you a pretty complete picture of who they are, what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are. So 4-game stretch is pretty good. Minnesota for 4 games has been, they looked unstoppable, basically. I don't know if they've really been challenged even. So they've had a couple of games that were close sort of partway through, but they have not really hadn't many, close calls.
Yeah, that's right. And I like Minnesota here too. I think I probably wanted to bring up this game just because it's really interesting to see that even though the Jets have a healthier version of Aaron Rodgers, the offense still really isn't there yet. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't feel like that offense is clicking the way it should, even with, the obvious upgrade at quarterback they have this year in Aaron Rodgers. So,
Rodgers won't have the problem. He said the wet ball made it difficult to throw. So he won't have that problem in Minnesota, but yeah, whatever. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is a funny cat, man. He's like, he just seems annoyed whether things are going well or not.
yeah.
He just gives off that vibe. I think he would be a really difficult guy to play with, from what I can tell. Like I think you admire his talent, and you feel like if you're that defensive, he gives you a better shot than the guys you had last year. But wow, yeah, it's like a weird, he's like getting into it with his coach, and he's unhappy about what everybody else is doing. And, maybe that's a part of his thing of trying to elevate the team. He wants them to, not be satisfied with playing a mediocre game like they did. But I felt like he did not play a very good game against Denver.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like the Jets are all on the same page yet. Hassan Reddick has never reported. So it's like they don't have the star pass rusher that they thought they were going to have. Funny thing, since we're talking about it, if Davante Adams really wants out of Las Vegas, him going to the Jets would, I think, be a huge shot in the arm. Just do a switch, Reddick for Adams. Reddick wants the big contract anyway. He clearly doesn't want to be in New York. Adams would love to be back with Aaron Rodgers. There's that weird saga where, Antonio Pierce looked like he liked a message on Instagram that said Adams played his last snap as an Las Vegas Raider. So the drama's flying there. Very, very, just kind of a fun little situation.
Isn't it fun when the drama's on some other franchise for a change? It's great.
And since we're talking about Davante Adams, would you trade for him if you're Pittsburgh?
No.
Since they were in the let's try to trade for everyone on an expiring contract or free agent wide receiver this year.
I mean, there's no doubt that he would upgrade their team, but I don't know if the upgrade is worth the cost. That's the contract part of it is really nasty with him.
Yeah.
The very high tag. and he's price tag, and he's the wrong side of 30, and like it's not an ideal situation where he's a long-term piece. But once again, they think differently than I do, because if they are in the mode where they think they can win the Super Bowl this year with everything else that they have, then upgrading from Van Jefferson to Devontae Adams, of course, is like that's a no-brainer. Adams is a better blocker. He's a far better receiver. I don't know if he's a better teammate, but he's pretty good. I don't know that he would be particularly satisfied coming to Pittsburgh, because they don't really want to throw the ball, and they have a quarterback who has very high level skills at certain things, but also is not exactly like seeing guys that are open and being willing to like throw it to them. So we'll see where that goes. I think the Jets makes way more sense. I love your idea of the swap Reddick for Adams. I feel like that's pretty good for a team like Las Vegas, especially if they're willing to sign Reddick to a contract that satisfies him, because then you have that guy for a few years to come, and you manage to get rid of your problem.
Right. The only reason I bring up the Adams thing for Pittsburgh potentially, you said they still think they can probably contend for a Super Bowl. Obviously, we're not on that wavelength, but I would say this: Adams might not be happy this year with like the Justin Fields situation, because if we continue to kind of mess around here, and just be that classic 9-8 Steelers team, barely over 500, losing round one. We could afford Adams if we're going to trade up for a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, where all of a sudden you have the pieces around him to where he could be successful. That was kind of my thinking behind trading for him. Is like, yeah, he's going to upgrade our chances this year, but if we don't believe in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and all this group, trade up for a rookie quarterback, and all of a sudden then he has George Pickens and Devontae Adams on one side. You just drafted Roman Wilson, who don't get me wrong, hasn't played yet, but he's only a rookie. You figure he's going to be in the plans. Calvin Austin is still here. It's like he'd have a very complete wide receiver room. He's going to have a decent tight end room for the time being, because Freiermuth got his extension. Darnell Washington's only in year 2 of his rookie deal, so you'll have him for 2 more years. The only thing you really need to get him is a ground game, and like you said, there's a million different running backs in this upcoming draft class. So
yeah,
just from that perspective, I thought you could be setting a rookie quarterback up for a really good offense, as long as he just can come in and facilitate and keep building on that. But that was just kind of my thought.
Let's do a little reality check. Unless Justin Fields absolutely catches fire, like crashes and burns to the ground, collapses into his own footprint, like halfway through the season, not even like in the playoffs, unless he's so catastrophically crashes and burns, or he, God forbid, suffers an injury to his, to knee or Achilles or something, where you're not sure if he's going to be 100% ready for next year. Unless one of those, fairly unlikely events happens, Justin Fields is going to be your starter at Pittsburgh for the next 3 or 4 years. Like, that's coming, man. I think it's the same kind of denial, like to people who are not, who think Mike Tomlin should move on, that it just like, it may happen someday that he decides he wants to retire, but it's not like they're going to fire him at the end of the season, no matter what happens. If they lost every game the rest of the season, he's coming back next year, right? So the thing about Fields is, I think he has to fail so badly. It has to go so wrong for them not to have him back next year. Because I think what the bar was, you either had to not see him enough during the course of the year to know, what you think he looks like in your offense, and or he had to come in and be so bad that, he had to be like Will Levis bad in order for you to not have him come back. I think that was the desire. They love him in the way that they love Najee Harris, and they, these guys that are like one of their guys, for Tomlin especially, and I feel like that's ship has just about sailed now. So as much as I would like to draft like the right quarterback next year, that those hopes are fading by the quarter.
Quickly, yeah.
by the drive. They
Sure.
just get further and further south. I'm sorry to say that, folks, because I feel like it's the time, like if you wait too much longer, by the time a rookie gets into year two, you're going to lose a lot of key players on your defense. Like who knows how many more years Hayward or Watt have. So yeah, I would prefer to bite that bullet now and bring somebody in. But there's problems with that too. I don't know that we have the right offensive coordinator and head coach to develop a quarterback, even a really good quarterback, and make it work. So maybe Justin Fields and what he's capable of doing is as good as we're going to get.
Yeah.
The fatalist in me saying that, starting to accept the idea that this is what we have to work with, maybe.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. Last one before we get to our game. New Orleans is heading to Kansas City. Kansas City is favored by 5. I'll start out here. I hate that line. I really don't know how this Kansas City team is going to look without Rashee Rice. He's been such a huge part of their offense this year. And while I definitely think Travis Kelce's value is about to shoot up because he can do some of the stuff in the middle of the field that Rice has been doing, he has really been the cog that has been moving this offense this year. And I know that's not the right name. Xavier Worthy. I was about to say Jarrell Worthy. I was like, no, that's that
no, wrong guy.
That's that D tackle from a long time ago. But
James Worthy. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Xavier Worthy is up to his, usage a little bit, but I don't think this offense can just hang its hat on Xavier Worthy. That's a lot to expect out of the rookie. I understand you still have the best quarterback in the game in Patrick Mahomes, but New Orleans has been playing pretty good football. Their defense has been up there, so I feel like their defense is going to find a way to just make it tough for Worthy to be more of a factor. I wouldn't be worried about Juju Smith-Schuster and some of the other wide receivers. They have Kelsey. He looks just a tick slower. He's not slow by any means, but he just doesn't look like he's quite as fast as he has been in the past. I don't know if he's nursing something like he was last year, but he hasn't been much of a factor so far. I think that'll change, but I just really like New Orleans here. I just think they've got more pieces moving, well oiled at this point. They're all relatively healthy. I know Kamara a little dinged up or whatever, but when is Kamara not dinged up? So I like the Saints here to win and cover.
I think that's not a unreasonable selection at all. And covering 5 is not nothing in the NFL, especially for a team like Kansas City, who is basically on autopilot right now while they recover from injuries and while they wait for the playoffs, But I do think there's a big challenge coming into Kansas City to play that's different for a team like New Orleans that doesn't do that every year. One of the toughest places to play, I think. Yeah, unless you're bringing a big fan base, which I doubt that the Saints will. So I feel like this is a matchup where on paper, what like if you weight heavily what New Orleans did in the first couple of games of the season, then they're a better football team this year. And the Chiefs have really not looked good doing it, but they're just in that mode of winning games. So covering 5. I don't know. I wouldn't bet it. I would stay away from this game. But I feel like Kansas City will figure out a way to win in the end because that's just they're so used to playing football that way right now. And yes, you lost they lose their stud running back and they plug someone else in who's pretty effective. They'll lose Rice. Rice, wasn't even the guy for them last year.
Right.
Like so it's sort of like they even know how to win without him, and probably Kelsey is another guy that will play better in the second half of the season than he did to start the season. Like I'm just not really sure he's playing at whatever his peak can be this year. In a way, it feels like he's saving himself a little bit, which is funny. But it is. Someone else said this. I think it's so true. Like they're in NBA mode, where they don't like nothing really happens until the postseason starts in terms of, they're playing to their level. Like they look like NBA teams look like a different team when they hit the postseason, and I feel like the Chiefs are that way.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. And now we're going to move on to our 5-star matchup of the week.
Woo!
Dallas Cowboys travel to see your Pittsburgh Steelers at Acrisure Stadium. Pittsburgh is favored by 2.5 here, which is basically your standard teams at home, you give them 3 type of line. I really don't know what to think about this game. Just because maybe it's recency bias, and we saw Pittsburgh see some holes in the armor. Um, I I like Dallas here. I hate to say it, but I just feel like the Dallas offensive line is going to be able to run the ball a little bit on us. I mentioned Guyton earlier, but Cooper Bebe, was a college guard who is playing center for them, has started every game. He's looked pretty good. Only a few instances, here and there, like every rookie has, of not playing that great. But I just feel like the middle of our defense right now is such a hole, and I think Dallas is going to know how to take advantage of it. And I guess I'm just not quite sold on our offense yet, especially if we're just down to Najee Harris. Or Cordero Patterson is still dinged up. It sounds like we're going to promote Ward off the practice squad. Jonathan Ward. I can't remember his first name.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but sounds like we're going to elevate him to play, which is, I know he looked decent in the preseason. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like our ability to run the ball, which means Dallas is just going to be able to key in on the pass. I know we mentioned earlier, that they're going to be down a few notches on their pass rushing style with, three of their top defensive end guys out for this game. So I don't know. Fields showed his true colors in those last 4 plays, and it's like right now it's just such a sore thought in my memory. I just don't know if Pittsburgh is going to have enough to overcome it. Pickens versus Diggs, I think that'll be a pretty good matchup on the outside. We didn't really touch on it, but you're going to have your wins there, you're going to have your losses there. I just don't see the rest of this offense performing that well again this week. So I like Dallas to win and cover, unfortunately.
The Steelers are a team that can totally flip the switch with a big emotion game. I feel like, traditionally under Mike Tomlin, especially, and also with Bill Cowher, that they rode waves of emotion, especially at home and especially at night. And if you look at what their record is in night football, especially Sunday night football at home, they have beaten teams that were better than them. They have crushed teams that were equal to them. They have, done the same to teams that were worse than them. I think whether Pittsburgh is a better team at the end of the season than Dallas or not remains to be seen. They're similar, they're similar talents, although Dallas is more talented on offense and less talented on defense. I actually think the Steelers will win this game. I think it's very close. I'm not sure they'll cover, but okay. I think they will find out a way to win this game. They might cover hard. I'd be afraid to bet it after last week's, situation with Indianapolis, but I will take the Steelers to once again score 27 points and to win 27-26 against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football.
Sorry, what was your score?
27, Steelers 27, Dallas 26.
Gotcha. You're right. We always do a score with this one.
By the way, that's 4 field goals and 2 touchdowns, in case you're wondering.
Okay. Boy, if it's I picked Dallas to win, so I'm gonna go 23-17 Dallas. I don't feel like a lot of points are going to be scored this game, but it's going to be like big plays that kind of break the camel's back.
That Dallas's defense is really bad. I mean, far worse than Indianapolis's defense. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be the Dallas performance of the century on defense, but
yeah, who knows? But well, thank you for tuning in to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. Me, Smith Smokes on the best sports. Joined by Will Masisak, as Bradshaw to Ben. It's funny. This is one of those classic old school matchups. Between Steelers.
Who you calling old?
I did not do that. I did not do that. But Steelers versus Cowboys. There's a lot of history here, so maybe that goes. Pulls into kind of your kind of emotional response game. Will, that you said from Pittsburgh, it's home. These two teams have hated each other for a very long time, just due to old rivalries. So we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah, they're different. They're sort of, the new age and the old age. I guess we'll find out who
Yeah.
wins.
All right. Well, here we go, Steelers.
Yeah, let's go.